Thank you guys so much for coming back. So many return faces again. Thank you for coming back to be here and support me and to kind of listen in to how we've been doing. If anybody is new, I just wanted to introduce myself formally. I'm Brie. I'm the speaker for tonight. I'm married to Dan, who's the pastor at Grace Church of Greenwich, and we meet here, believe it or not, on Sunday mornings. A nice little quaint building here. And was there anything else? No, that's it. I'm actually going to start the evening by having our theme Bible passage being read. And it's coming from the book of Romans, chapter 8, verses 18 to 30. And it's actually on the inside of our handouts. I think it's right on the back page there. And before I have my friend Joanna come up to read it, I wanted to do just a little introduction. So just flip to it on that first page. And what you're going to notice is that it is quite a long passage. It's quite complicated at times. But I wanted to give you a little assurance that almost all the time we spend in this passage tonight is on that one highlighted sentence. And so I think the question I would ask is, well, then why read the whole passage kind of thing? Why take all that time? Well, I've found it really good practice with complicated reading to read it a few times through. The more I get to read it, the more I see that kind of developing argument, the main points, the big themes coming out. But I also wanted you to be able to read it so that you can check if I'm teaching that highlighted sentence correctly, right? If you're seeing those themes and those developing arguments coming through, you can go, oh yeah, I see what she's saying. I can see where she's getting that from. So it's a little bit of an exercise for you to go, I get it. I can see where that's coming from. So as my friend Joanna comes up to read, see if you can hear the arguments as they're being built. See if you can see the themes and the different points that the author's trying to get across. Joanna?
So Romans chapter 8, verses 18 through 30. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us. For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in hope, that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now. And not only the creation, but we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for adoption as sons, the redemption of our bodies. For in this hope we were saved. Now hope that is seen is not hope, for who hopes for what he sees? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. Likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. For we do not know what to pray for as we ought, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. And he who searches hearts knows what is the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for the saints according to the will of God. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, in order that he might be the firstborn among many brothers. And those whom he predestined, he also called. And those whom he called, he also justified. And those whom he justified, he also glorified.
Thank you. Well done, getting through that whole thing. For those of you here for the first time, I wanted to tell you just how the brokenness of this world has affected me these past few years. In 3 years, I lost 3 people I loved dearly. My dad died in 2019 from a brain tumor. My mom died in 2020 from ALS. And in June of last year, my daughter died from leukemia. So the question I want to cry out is, when will we ever be free from disease? And my talk last time explained that it's not just me crying out that question. In sentence 22 of the reading, even this creation, this world, is groaning because of the death it causes. Whether it's hurricanes or earthquakes, cancer or dementia, this world groans because of its brokenness. But it groans like the pains of childbirth. It groans because there's something good coming after the pain. And the Bible said that this world will be restored. It will be made a new creation, a new world. Everything that causes heartache in this world, tsunamis, blizzards, COVID, even death itself, will be gone. We'll finally get to enjoy the beauty of this world without the brokenness interfering. But there may be some of you out there whose hearts don't really ache because of disasters or diseases. Your hearts ache over different pains, and it's the heartache caused by other people. How many tears have been shed because of a voice raised in anger, or a post that went viral, or a gun that fired? How incredibly sad is it that our children need to be taught stranger danger, and that cops need to stand outside their schools? People are manipulated, lied to, backstabbed, bullied, stepped on, disregarded. Marriages fall apart, families are divided, and coworkers are just competition. And sometimes it's the pain when people don't do anything. I know there are many whose hearts hurt because they're forgotten, alone, overlooked. Or it could even be the pain of what people could do to you. We just moved into a new school district, and I'm meeting lots of new people, but for every conversation I have, there's this internal decision about what information I share, right? My guard's up. I don't know if I can trust you. Will I regret saying this to you one day? Do you not see how broken our relationships are, right? It's hard for us to trust, to love completely, because we know what could happen. So the question we all want to cry out is, when will people stop hurting each other? But I think there's a challenging question we need to ask ourselves. How much are we part of the problem? And I wonder if you've ever noticed, but it's almost common practice to lie to our kids. We'll see. I'll think about it. I'll be in there in a minute. Or there's even this society-approved joke about celebrating getting the kids out of the house. I can remember this TV commercial growing up, and it was about back-to-school shopping. And the mother is just dancing through the aisles, and the kids are dragging their feet behind, right? And what's at the root of those common behaviors? It's selfishness, right? I don't want to deal with the meltdown when I say no. I don't want to have to explain again why we won't buy a horse. Or the kids are just annoying. I want a little me time. Right? And even if you don't have kids, can you see how we all still act the same way? Do we not celebrate when that coworker goes on vacation? Or when that friend decides not to come to the party? or the lies that we don't think much of. Right? Yeah, let's get dinner together. No, not tonight. I have a headache. And it may not seem like such a big deal until the lie is discovered. Until your own kids realize their own parents don't want them around. Until maybe you realize that you are that friend or coworker. I hope we can all honestly admit that we too have hurt others. We've caused pain and tears and heartache. We may not be the worst we could be. We're certainly not as good as we should be. And we see in sentence 23 of that Bible passage, we see people groaning. We are groaning inwardly, just like them, because we fail to be the people we really want to be. And do you want to know what's even more frustrating? It's not just when I do awful things or when I fail to do the right thing. I even groan when I'm actually doing the right thing. Let me explain. So when I'm caring for someone who has no one, when I'm sacrificing time or money, in my mind, I hope someone's watching. I hope someone sees just how good a person I am. So even in the times I'm giving, it's really about me. Right? Even when I'm being selfless, I'm really just serving the self. So if this is what we're all like, if we all at our core are really just serving ourselves, is there any hope? Is this world ever going to be a place where people don't hurt each other? I think we all secretly hope, right? We'll keep progressing, keep getting better. And even if we don't see it, maybe our grandkids will. Call me a pessimist. I don't think it will, right? I mean, number one, can you imagine all 6 billion people on the planet on the same day, at the same time, deciding to be only selfless, and then continuing to live that way? And number two, I mean, what do you do about kids? We don't have to teach selfishness, right? We know how to stomp, yell, cry, hit to get what we want. So before we're even thinking, we're causing pain, we're hurting others. So we've got a problem. This world, our relationships, will never be perfect. So is there any hope? If it's always going to be like this, is there any hope? And what I would love to do now is show you how the Bible gives us hope. How the Bible shows there will be a world where people don't hurt each other. A world where people only think about others and not themselves. And that hope, that solution, it starts with one man. He's the one man who lived perfectly, loved completely, gave himself fully for others. And his name was Jesus. And we're going to get to understand just how amazing he is in the next Bible passage for tonight. It's right on the flip side of the handout, much shorter. It's coming from Philippians chapter 2, verses 5 to 8. Read along with me as I'm reading aloud. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. Before we think about the mindset of Jesus, I wanted to do a little imagination time. I wanted to imagine what it was like to be rich and famous. I do have a confession that whenever I take a plane ride somewhere, I like to kind of pop into the Hudson News or whatever news store there is, and I get one of those magazines like People or Us. And it's kind of sad that the older I get, the less I know the people in the magazine, but it's still fun to pick it up, you know. And so let's just take a second and kind of think about what's it like to live like them? What do they have? What about their house? So let's just, the house. I kind of imagine houses that are as big as my college campus. Right, you need the golf cart to get from the kitchen to the bedroom kind of thing. And that's not the only house, right? They've got the chalet in the mountains and a villa on an island somewhere. And they must have just, I mean, the money they have to do whatever they want, whatever experience they want, right? I want to see the oceans, buy a yacht. I want to see that country, get a plane. I want to go to space, get a ship, right? This is it, you can do that now. And the power they have at their hands. Think of all the people ready to serve, right? Pilots, chefs, landscapers, cleaners, employees, right? Even their own houses obey, thanks to Alexa, right? With just one call or text. What they want done is done. Now, what about Jesus? What did he have? Let's look at that Bible passage we just read, right? In sentence 6, we see Jesus is in very nature God. What does that mean that he's God? What does that look like? How does it compare to the rich and famous? Let's think about his home. What would be a fitting home for the creator of the universe? The Alps? An island? A continent? Planet? A star? Like, how could any one of these even come close to containing the one who knows the name of every star? The universe for God is his footstool. And what kind of power did Jesus have? Well, he commands planets to orbit, seasons to change, the ant to build his home. I mean, what we call laws of nature is just a sustaining work of a rational, orderly God. But did he cling to it? Right? Did he cling to the advantages of being God, the power, authority, the respect? Look back again at that sentence 6. Jesus did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. He made himself nothing, being made in human likeness. Instead of having the universe as his footstool, Jesus locked himself into one location. He was born. And where did he put himself? A paradise? A palace? Surely the king of the universe should at least have one of those rich and famous homes. No, he chose a poor village with a sad reputation. I mean, one of his friends, before he knew Jesus, famously said, "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" That's where Jesus put himself. And where was he born? A dingy, dirty stable, right? Manure on the floor, slobber on the feeding trough where he was sleeping. I always love a good baby delivery story where things don't happen quite as they're supposed to happen, right? The baby's born in the cab or in the hallway or kind of on the elevator. Well, how about if your story ended on a barn floor before the stalls got cleaned out? Probably not the story you're going to share. But that's how he chose to be born. And it wasn't just the location he locked himself into, it was a body, right? He was born with a feeble, frail body. He went from commanding planets to commanding nothing in that body, right? He was utterly dependent on a human for life. The creator and sustainer of the universe needed his diaper changed. So I'm not surprised that there are some people who are shocked that Christians believe God became man. Those people get how humiliating that would be for God, because they get how powerful God is. And yet, Jesus did that. He did not consider equality with God as something for his own advantage. He made himself nothing. He became a human. So even just becoming a human was a huge step downward. And I'm probably dating myself a bit here, but there's a great line in the movie Aladdin about being a genie. Phenomenal cosmic power, itty bitty living space. That's not how it was for Jesus, right? He had the cosmic power, and he had more than enough space, right? His footstool. But he chose to limit himself to a dirty stable and a powerless human body. And he didn't even stop there. The eternal Son of God, the one who knew no beginning, tasted an end. He tasted death. And now that I've sat at the bedside of my mom and my daughter when they died, I have a deeper appreciation of how Jesus died. My mom was given morphine so she could slowly drift to sleep. Jesus was whipped. His hands were pierced. He couldn't breathe as he hung on that cross. Nurses and doctors spent an entire night fighting to keep my daughter alive. People were fighting for Jesus. They were fighting to make sure he got killed. My daughter had her own room with a curtain for privacy. Jesus was on display, naked, beaten, shamefully exposed as he died. Both my mom and my daughter got to hear sweet words like, "I love you. I'm going to miss you so much." What did Jesus hear as he closed his eyes? People laughing at him, mocking him. An entire mob filled with hate, cheering for his death. It was a horrifying death. And yet Jesus chose to die that way. The eternal Son of God tasted death on a cross. And the question I have to ask is why? Why go from the heights of heaven to the horrors of this death? And I'll be honest, there's a lot of reasons why Jesus came down, but the main one was so that he could bring us up to that new world we talked about last time, right? The one with no tears and no pain and no sorrow. It seems a little extreme. Did Jesus really have to die that horrible death to bring me up? I'm not that bad. A little lie here, a little bit of selfishness. I'm a pretty good person. Surely God can overlook those things. That's the whole point. We're only pretty good people. But we're talking about a perfect new world. Not a pretty good one, a perfect one. Would it really be perfect if any imperfection was allowed in? Right? If there was even a little bit of gossip, a little bit of anger or pride, would it really be perfect? So there's the problem. Pretty good people don't belong there. None of us belong there because none of us is perfect. And perfection is the requirement to get in. And Jesus saw this. He saw our problem. He saw this world churning with hurt and pain, and he saw that we could not get in there, and so he came down. He said, I'll live the perfect life. I'll pay the price so you can get in. The only thing you have to do is be humble enough to admit that you don't deserve to be there, and you need his help to get in. And if we're willing to do that, he will give us the credit for everything he did right, and he'll take all the things that we did wrong. We get free access to a place we never deserved to be. He's not waiting for you to be perfect, to follow every commandment, pray perfectly, meditate perfectly, to be perfect. No. He wants you to say, I'm not perfect. I don't deserve to be there. Can you help me get in? His answer to that question every time is yes. He wants to give access. He's giving away the tickets for free. But we have to be humble enough to ask for them. But just to be clear, even indecision about Jesus, saying, well, I don't really know about him, right? He's a good guy, but I don't know if he's real. I'm agnostic. I can't really know. Even that indecision is a decision. He's holding out the ticket to you. But if you never accept it, you won't get in. So if you have been feeling beat up by this world of people, betrayed too many times, yelled at too many times, mocked too many times, or just feeling overlooked and alone, Jesus saw you. He saw you and the rough world that this is. And he's offering hope. Hope of a perfect world where none of that will ever happen again. Hope that you too can get in. You just have to be humble enough to ask him. And it's not just access to a perfect world that he offers. If you admit you need his help, if you accept his offer of an entry ticket, you too will be made perfect. You will no longer be just a pretty good person. You will become perfect. And it's back in that first Bible passage we read where we find out that Jesus will give us the Spirit of God to conform us to the image of the Son. He's going to transform us to be like Jesus. That is how you will be perfect. I'm not sure how you reacted to every betrayal or outburst or harsh word. If you're anything like me, I'm sure it wasn't that great. To be honest, maybe you were even the one betraying or yelling or mocking. I mean, each one of these actions is because of that core we talked about earlier, that core of selfishness. Our world thinks in terms of my respect, my rights, my needs. Well, when you accept Jesus' offer, the Spirit gets to work. He starts to transform that thinking. He transforms us to think like Jesus. Jesus never thought about his own respect. Right? He came down here, was mocked, laughed at, spit upon. Why? Because he wanted to save others. Jesus never thought about his own comfort. Right? He had a cushy life. Right? The universe was his footstool. But he was born in a stable. He lived a life of pain. Why? To save others. His life was only ever about the other. He lived for others. Can you even imagine a world where people only thought like he did? Where they only thought about how to love others? That's the perfect new world we talked about before. The Spirit is transforming people to think like Jesus, to act like him. No longer about the me, only about others. And what would that world be like? Filled with people who only act like him, only think like him. Well, children and women would no longer be in danger because people wouldn't be thinking about their own desires. We could be totally open in conversation because people wouldn't use that information for themselves. No more angry outbursts because people wouldn't be trying to justify themselves. We wouldn't need police, psychiatrists, doctors, lawyers, insurance companies, pharmaceuticals, bouncers, bodyguards. I mean, how many careers unnecessary in that perfect new world? It'll be the wedding party without the family drama. The coffee with a friend without self-pity, envy, or pride. The Friday family fun night with no tears or eyes rolled in boredom. That's the perfect new world, right? The world of breathtaking beauty and relationships that only bring joy. So as we draw the talk to a close, I would love for you to see what this hope, what this solution means for me as I struggle to live without my daughter. Isabel was an amazing little girl. She loved babies. She could run with the boys and play with the girls. She was really good at making people feel welcome, cared for, seen. But as amazing as she was, she too had a core of selfishness. Right? She could stomp her feet in anger, roll her eyes, sulk for hours. She's perfected now. The Spirit has transformed her to love like Jesus, think like him, to only love others. And as good as it was to have her here as my daughter, even my core of selfishness messed up our relationship. I could snap at her in anger. I lied to her when it was convenient. I sometimes even thought of her as a nuisance. So as much love and laughter and warmth that we had in our relationship, there was this tension, struggle. But I've got my ticket to that perfect new world where she's waiting. I don't deserve to go there, but I asked Jesus to help me because I knew I needed it. And when I see my daughter again, when I hold her in my arms and look in her eyes, see that smile, that strain in our relationship will be gone. We both will be perfected, selfless, loving, just like the Jesus who saved us. Before we wrap up for tonight, I just wanted to share a few items before we close. We brought out a few more of the Gospels of John. This is like a biography of Jesus. Tells you about what he did and said while he was here on this earth. I think they're over on the back tables over there. Mark your calendars for the final talk. It's coming up quicker than this one. April 21st. We're going to think about then, we're going to think about where's God? Where is God in all of this brokenness? And actually, after that talk, that third talk, I'm going to plan to have an upfront question and answer session. And so it's going to give you a chance to ask those questions that may have come out of some of the talks. So get ready for coming back for that. We're going to be running a 3-week course called Christianity Explored. The cards are on the table. It's going to be on Thursday nights starting on April 27th. It's going to go from 6 to 7 p.m. Dinner, babysitting provided for. I'll tell you up front, a ton of our kids are already here, so it's like a huge play date for the kids. Unlike tonight, it's going to be a lot more like a discussion group. We'll watch like a short little video, and then we'll kind of just think through a lot of different questions. Any questions open for discussion. It's a really great time for people looking into Christianity, or people just wanting to get back into it, right? I grew up in it, but now I kind of want to get back and just get down to the roots. So sign up with the email on there, or just come on along. And finally, I think there are some discussion questions on the back of the handout to help you kind of think through the talk tonight. Feel free to use them for conversations. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on April 21st. Thank you.